Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. Our guest today is fairly well known around the area, Representative Judd Matheny, and who manages to stay busy these days. Judd, thanks for time.
I'm glad to be here, and thanks for working with my schedule a little bit today. We had
that's
a wild day.
That's quite all right. As I say, you're a little bit busy. How is your schedule working? You're doing the Tennessee legislature at the same time you're running for Congress.
I am,
is that
of course.
Fun?
Well, the priority right now is the legislature, and we're trying to make sure we don't let any bad bills pass. And then, yes, I'm still absolutely in the campaign, working hard, and we're really gearing up for an active summer. It's going to be Tennessee, for everybody that's watching, is the most politically active state in the union. We've got so much activity, even on the local level. State level, about a third of our government roughly is going to change hands in August and November. It's quite the situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of hard to predict where that might be headed, isn't it?
It really is. There's no clear path or group of people that have the clear momentum. It's pretty much equal across the board. It is different. Yeah.
Okay. And the legislative session ends in
mid-April, probably between the 12th and 15th of April. We're just wrapping up budget hearings now in the Finance Committee, which is kind of the last hurdle for the budget before it goes to the floor, and we'll make a few changes to it. And but we like for the March revenue figures, actually the February revenue figures, to come out around this time, around March 15th to the 18th, so that we can make a little bit more accurate projection for the following year.
Yeah,
so pushes us a little bit into April for a final decision, but all numbers look good.
Okay. Well, with that, folks, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll come back and find out what's been going on.
Attention Shoeistas, Bryn's Shoe Boutique in Tullahoma is closing forever. Every item in the store is reduced for immediate sale. Brenda is offering huge discounts on her entire inventory of fashion women's shoes, designer handbags, and jewelry, featuring famous brands like Yellow Box, Nine West, Bandolero, Impo, Coach, Michael Kors, Joseph Ribkoff, and others. The sale is underway now through March 3rd. Hurry in for huge savings at Bryn's Shoe Boutique, 115 Northwest Atlantic Street, Tullahoma. Open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday.
All I have to do is think about what I was physically before and what I am now, and I don't ever want to go back to that original situation.
The overall mission of the rehab team is always what is best for the patient and how we can facilitate maximum potential from every resident.
Well, the most important thing to me is that I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do,
Everyday Miracles, Life Care Center of Tullahoma.
Tired of paying for monthly telephone service, expensive long-distance bills, and all those crazy taxes? Are you sick of spending money on telephone equipment, maintenance contracts, and service calls, all for a phone system that shackles you to 100-year-old technology and your desk? Stop it. It's time to ship your phone system to the cloud. What can the cloud do for you? Bring together remote offices, workers, and employees in the field. Make sure that you'll never miss calls by delivering them to multiple devices. Modernize faxing by allowing multiple faxes to be sent and received at once, and delivered to email. Get your voicemail messages instantly through email too, and take advantage of an endless supply of customizable features. Host My Calls can deliver the cloud. All of this technology with low upfront costs and not one penny in capital expense. It's time for a phone solution you'll truly love from Host My Calls. Call the number below.
We have with us today Representative Judd Matheny, folks, and we want to talk first some about the legislative session, which we're still ongoing. Judd, what's happened so far? What have passed that?
Well, Tom, it's been in past years we've always had kind of a huge issue that is the gas tax or Medicaid expansion or Common Core. This year there's not been a major issue like that. School safety has popped up in the last month. obviously due to the latest Florida school shooting, which has really disturbed everybody, and it's mobilized both the pro-gun people to help schools become more safe, and the anti-gun people to try to make schools more safe also in the way they think to do things. So those arguments are sort of conflicting with each other in the committee rooms in the General Assembly and we're looking at everything from allowing teachers to be armed and citizens to be armed with permits in the schools, which is not going to happen. That we tried to pass that. That was actually one of my bills. And but we did.
What, to arm the teachers?
To allow a teacher with a permit to carry in the schools. The permit holders are our safest segment of our population by far, and the most responsible segment of our citizens. So there's really nowhere they shouldn't be able to be armed, really, except a penal facility or a federal courthouse, in my opinion. But we are passing the laws that basically creates an opportunity for school systems, if they choose, to enter into a program that can allow teachers to be armed in the classroom. And the training is quite rigorous. It involves a lot of situations that law enforcement goes through when they train to shoot in courthouses and things of that nature, defense. So it would have to be a local education agency that chose to do it. This is just the first step, but at least we're giving an opportunity to those that want to do it. And I can tell you that more than 2 school systems in Middle Tennessee are already ready to do this. Allow their teachers or some of their supervisors to be armed. And so we're looking at that, and we're also looking at the physical aspects of school safety, not just the instruments that are used to carry out the crime, but how do we make the schools more secure without making kids feel like they're in a prison and making the community feel like they're taking their kids to a prison. And there's a whole lot of options. There's some very ingenious door locks that are out there that come up from the bottom of the floor, and they can be activated with a smartphone. They can be activated from a central office. They can be activated by a number of buttons, and they really make any standard door impregnable for a good period of time. And they're not a lot of money. You're talking about probably $200 or so a unit. There's things like that we can put on the locks, and there's more physical security outside. There's more cameras. There's more intelligence gathering. There's a lot of communities, including our community, I think, that are starting to look at the holistic problem and how can we teach teachers to identify things, teach students to identify things, teach law enforcement to identify things.
Teach
and a lot
the
of
community.
Yeah, and a lot of it's going to center on mental health issues. That's probably been the common denominator of every shooting we've had, has been some type of severe mental history.
Mental or emotional.
It's not been somebody that woke up one morning and said, I'm going to go do this. It's somebody that had, and I would argue with anybody, just without even having all the statistics in front of me, but just from my memory, that we're talking in the high percentage of shootings have all been this. Some might have been emotional from a relationship, but most of them have been a mental illness. Yeah. And so we've got to increase awareness of that. And the governor's office did a huge hit last year, positive way, towards mental health, especially in rural communities, and getting some more help to our folks. And so we're looking at mental health a lot closer, but we don't do like we used to do. We don't have the beds available for the severe mentally ill. We don't have the counselors at the mental health centers surrounding our area have 40 and 50 people each for a caseload, and we just need more help.
Yeah, we've had a situation, as I say, the whole community needs to be more aware. We've had, I think, in almost every shooting, there have been some clues out there that should have been picked up. Yeah. A couple of them even reports to the FBI, which were ignored, and that's the best way for school safety. There's so many, and I'll defend the FBI here, even though we wish they'd have caught that, but they don't have the manpower either. They're dealing with so many issues and mandated with so many investigations and having to deal with so many leads, and boy, it's hard to keep up. And so we have to look at this whole problem and how we're going to deal with it. And we also have to understand, and this is the thing that's kind of hard for everybody to sink in, but guns are here to stay.
We can't wish they were gone. We're not going to be able to legislate them out of the way. They're here to stay. So gun safety has to be a key issue. The chance of a kid, I think, coming across a loaded firearm by the time they graduate high school, or even if they're 15 years old, is 100%. We teach our kids to drive, we teach them about sex, we teach them about drugs, we teach them about all these things in school, but we won't teach them how to properly handle a firearm or identify one and treat it safely. We just won't do that. But there's a 100% chance they're going to run across a gun. So this is another argument that we're having too, because if there's going to be weapons in the schools, they don't need to be such an oddity to a child. And this is just long-term thoughts that we're having in the legislature.
Yeah, we do have a new phenomena in the school safety issue, and that's the uprising of the kids. And it'll be interesting to see whether they are able to sustain that or not. But that's quite a phenomenon. They're putting a lot of pressure on the legislature. So
this one's a lot different than the ones in the past. All the ones in the past rocked us hard, but this one's really moving the needle, and it's moving it in all spectrums. It really is. It's moving. Everybody's saying, it is time to get deeper in this issue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything out there at the moment that you would specifically like to see happening?
Well, actually, I want to see the budget passed as closely and intactly as possible, and I think it will, because it preserves a lot of the programs that we've been glad to have here in the community. And years in the past, a lot of them have always been on the chopping block, whether it be our coordinated school health or grants to mental health facilities and things of that nature. They're all intact, and this seems to be a budget that's not going to have an extraordinary amount of growth in it like we had last year, which I'm glad we're having a bit more measured growth. But you have to remember, we cut franchise and excise taxes last year by about $300 million. Therefore, our budget's obviously not going to be as big this year, but our surplus is still in the high hundreds of millions, and we're going to be able to fully fund our rainy day fund, and don't see any new taxes on the horizon or the specter of that. And it really has been, like I say, sort of a benign year.
Yeah,
we're taking care of the state's business. We have things to do, a lot of technical cleanups on legislation, and of course the budget hearings have to be very exhaustive. But overall, everybody's just kind of pulling towards April 15th and go back home. Yeah.
Well, anything in particular you're expecting to happen between now and April 15th?
Other than the passage of the budget, I mean, there's a few local things I'm making sure don't happen. For utilities and the banks and things, we want to make sure that some legislation doesn't pass, which I don't think it will. So I'm really guarding against a few things, other than there's just not a lot of major initiatives out there that are going to be earth-changing. If it's yours, I'm sure if it's your group, it's very important. But from a macro perspective, like I said, it's a pretty slow year. Just want to make sure some negative things don't happen and that we pass a good, solid budget. And I'm going to leave this job, and whoever takes my place will make sure that they have full access to everything that I had and know.
Okay. Well, let's back to the school safety thing for a moment. Is there anything you're expecting to happen in the rest of the session?
I think we will pass the law that allows school systems to arm their teachers if they choose to do so. It won't be a mandate. It won't be there'll be no punitive damages against anybody that doesn't want to do it or is involved in the system and is upset about it. But I think we're going to give that opportunity to the teachers before the year's out through their school administrators.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is
that's a big move. That's a big move.
Yeah. This is a good time, folks. We need to take a short commercial break, and we'll be back and go some more.
Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has proudly served your auto rental for over 30 years. Check out this huge selection to choose from. Small car, mid-size car, full-size car, crossover vehicle, SUV, minivan, pickup trucks, 12 and 15 passenger vans. Whether big or small, Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has them all. Stop by our 2 locations to serve you. Tullahoma, and in Winchester. And remember, my question is, why rent anywhere else?
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
It's your trademark. That's something special everyone knows and remembers. It's your thing. It's made holidays special for decades and summers unforgettable for the entire neighborhood. It's made everyone laugh every single time. Don't let illness or injury keep you from doing your thing. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
I'm meteorologist Leland Statham from the News Channel 5 Weather Center. Look to Jim Fuller and crew for local news night here on Channel 6.
We're back, folks, and we're talking with Representative Judd Matheny. We've been catching on what's going on with the legislature recently. A couple of issues there we might touch on. Kind of a strange one to be coming up these days, the child marriage situation. Yeah. Where do you see that going?
Well, the legislature's been a lot more attuned to sex trafficking and things of those natures, because Tennessee, we're arguably, in the negative sense, the #1 state for sex trafficking in the country. And you say, why Tennessee? Well, if you look, just like we're the #1 state to manufacture and ship and transport from, we're an ideal hub for a lot of things. And it just so happens that you look at the number of interstates that come through Tennessee, and we're a relatively rural state. It's easy to hide an operation. So we just, as we look at child sex trafficking and abuse of minors, we're looking at that naturally at the protections of children in marriage. And the legislature doesn't want judges to be able to do anything that could be against probably the will of most of the public. So I think we hope to be able to put a 16, if not a 15-year limit on a marriage, so a judge has to at least look at that as a minimum threshold in the future. Okay,
that's going to be coming up the remainder of the session?
Yes, sir. Yes.
What about recovery schools? I'm seeing just they begin to talk about that, and apparently mostly related to the opioid crisis, which is indeed a crisis, not just in Tennessee, but all over the country. Any discussion of that subject going on?
Well, absolutely on both of them, and especially the opioid. Of course, the recovery schools have become, we're funding them more and more. They're propping up in every county and in almost every community. They're a diversion for a lot of criminal sentences, which we're very proud to be able to enable that. And but the opioid crisis, absolutely, it is probably the #1 thing that we talk about behind the scenes. The governor, and I know his people, are very dedicated, and the Commissioner of Health is very dedicated, especially the Commissioner of Health. He's tenacious on this, to trying to restrict yet provide access to what is needed as much as possible. And we've looking at everything from controlling the number of pills even more. Of course, the doctors, and we're very respectful of their scope of practice, and pharmacists and nurses, but at the same time we have to make sure that those that are abusing the system, but we don't want to hit the ant with a sledgehammer. We're trying not to punish the entire community for the few that are doing wrong, but it is such a problem that it's going to take the full attention of government, I think, to get in and help enable society to fix it, because it is eclipsing traffic deaths. If you think we have a lot of accidents and traffic deaths, you can imagine for every wreck you see out there's an overdose. May not be fatal, but there's an overdose. Yeah. But there's 1,500 fatal overdoses in Tennessee a year, from a whole host of reasons. They're not just from, and this is another thing we have to reason, it's not just your doctors. A lot of times it's black market and it's theft that led to the ability to overdose. It's not just because a doctor gave you a direct prescription. So there's a lot of factors out there, but the bottom line is there has to be much less of it in the society, and we have to recondition our people on how to deal with pain and recovery.
Yeah.
Some.
We allowed the whole community to get a little bit too relaxed about it, and we wound up with a major problem before we really realized what we were up against. Yeah, you mentioned 1,500. I think I saw a number, a little over 1,600 were died in 2016. I guess was the latest numbers out, and 285,000 or so users in the state. So we do have a major problem there we could deal with. Yeah. Let's talk a minute about the federal level. Couple, as you mentioned, there's an awful lot of turnover, and I think one of the more interesting ones is Senator Corker leaving.
Yep.
And how do you see that playing out?
Well, that's going to create once again, it gets back to all the political activity we had. Marcia Blackburn is a true powerhouse in the Republican Party, and Bredesen is a true powerhouse in the Republican or the Democrat Party. Bredesen has respect and business connections and a track record that reaches well into the moderate spectrum. And even I would argue into the conservative in some areas of business, especially. Yeah. So Marcia, and it will be a true battle. No, there's no doubt about it. But I'm a Marcia fan.
Yeah.
For sure.
And Bredesen was a very, very popular governor.
I enjoyed working with him. I have nothing against Governor Bredesen. He did a fantastic job for Tennessee.
Yeah.
But so is Marcia, and it's everybody's trying to move up or move on.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about another federal issue, but it comes down to affecting us. I see the governor's been complaining about it, and that is the imposition of steel and aluminum tariffs that the president is pushing and sort of ignoring his own advisors across the board.
Yeah, and I don't think everybody understands the change the president has in mind for that. It could have, people need to know, and I guess most people work in or are related to, or the automotive industry is such a big financial part of Tennessee, and much of it operates on a just-in-time,
inventory system.
Inventory, yes.
Yeah.
So if there's a hiccup, thank you, or a 2-week delay or a funnel in the supply chain, it can really rock our world a little bit. So we have to, people may balk at purchases if they're more expensive, and when you're looking way down the road in the supply chain at the absolute raw material, which is not the raw material, but one of the nearly raw materials, steel, that are going into all these components, you choke that off, it could have a real problem with our economy.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of eggs in the financial basket in Tennessee, in the automotive industry, and what's called the second-tier automotive industry, which is the businesses that support the main plants, the ones that make your seat covers and your carpets and steering wheels and all those. There are hundreds and hundreds of those factories.
Locally,
yes.
Yeah, we've got a very
That's
large
the number one employer if you aggregate them together by far.
And the governor's been expressing a very, very great concern about it. So, well, with that, folks, we need to take a short commercial break and wrap up.
Russell's got your truck, man. Russell's got your truck. Chevy, Ford, and Ram, man. Russell's got your truck. With the best selection anywhere, Russell's got your truck.
Keith Barnett here at the Russell Barnett Automotive Family, and man, do we ever have your truck. 4 brands, hundreds to choose from, all at year-end discounted prices. So with so much to choose from, my question is, why buy your next truck anywhere else?
Russell's got your truck, man.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We're back, folks, and our guest today has been Representative Judd Matheny, who is in the process of finishing up, I guess, his last legislative session since he's running for Congress. So
on the state level,
as soon as the legislature cools off here about the middle of April, things are going to heat up for Judd and a lot of across the board. It's been mentioned we got a very heavy election season. We also have a history that's dismal in terms of voter turnout. So for crying out loud, folks, if you don't like what's going on,
we're in the bottom of the national spectrum on voter turnout, but we have the most activity going on. So we have to change that for sure.
And if we don't like what the government's doing, it's our own fault.
And as I always, you're right. I'll tell everybody, if you don't get involved in your government will get involved in you. You can count on it. Count on
okay. Well, we got a minute or two left. What anything heavy on your mind?
Well, want to wrap up session and going to get into the congressional run, and as has been my interest for the entire time I've been in the legislature, I'm going to continue to concentrate on defense issues and personal freedoms, and also for the last 3 years and starting my 4th year of really working on the senior citizen issue and the advocacy for senior citizens. And I'm doing this in the legislature also. I passed a pretty substantial piece of legislation last year that helps enable companies to come here and be paid with predictability to take care of our seniors. And people need to understand that the senior citizen population is coming in such a wave that if we don't begin preparing now for the number that we need to take care of, we're going to all pay the price, and that's they need nutrition, they're going to need transportation, they're going to need housing, they're going to need health care, and it's a new industrial revolution.
That isn't really getting that much attention.
It's not, and I mean, for every job we're going to lose to automation in the automotive industry, to robotics, there's a job to be created as a nurse or in healthcare somewhere. Absolutely, right now, and we need to start shifting gears a little bit, because these folks are coming, and they're going to be the largest segment of our population by far in 15 years.
Largest segment by far. And you're talking about what, 65?
62 and 65 and over, yes,
65
sir.
and up. Okay. Well, all right. Well, that.
But let me tell you, before we go, you live in the best state in the union. You have more revenue, excess revenue per capita than any other state in the union. You're the most debt-free state in the union per capita. We need to be proud to be in Tennessee. There's no income tax. You have a lot of personal freedoms. You have a lot of opportunities to create businesses here. I think you have a very business-friendly environment in Tennessee. So be proud of your state, and for every negative thing you hear, there's 1,000 positive things, I promise you.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Well, thanks very much for taking time to be with us,
Thank
Judd.
you.
And good luck on your future, wherever it's headed.
Yeah.
And thank you for inviting us into your parlor, folks, and we will see you next time.